Good evening. Welcome to the July 2023 meeting for the City of Troy Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Mike Bossenbrook. I'm the chair of the committee, and good to have all my fellow board members here tonight, and city staff and our applicants. And we will dive right into the agenda for tonight. And we will start with the roll call. So, Mr. Evans, when you're prepared, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Bossenbrook.
I'm here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Kenkre.
Here.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Fox.
Here.
Mr. Forster.
Here. Great. Can everyone hear me through the mic? Okay, good. All right, so we move on to item number 2, which is the reading of our statement of procedure. And Mr. Eisenbacher, to my immediate left, is willing to read our opening statement and our statement of procedure.
Thank you. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a group of 7 of your neighbors appointed by the Troy City Council to decide on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Applicants must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. Procedure. The board will hear the items in the order that they appear on the approved agenda. When an item is called, the chairperson will verify that the applicant is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. If there is less than a full board, 7 members, present at a meeting, an applicant may request a postponement so his or her request can be heard by a full board. If there is no request for a postponement, the applicant will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the applicant makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairperson will open the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand, and when recognized by the chairperson, come up to the podium. The speaker should identify themselves with name and address, indicate their relationship to the property in question, for example, next door neighbor, live behind the property, etc., and state whether they are in favor of or against the variance request and give reasons for their opinion. Comments must be directed through the chairperson. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and closely pertain to the matter under consideration. Only one person will be recognized by the chairperson to speak at one time. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairperson will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or postpone the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to Oakland County Circuit Court.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenbacher, for reading our statement of procedure. Let's move on to item number 3, which is the consideration of last month's minutes of our meeting. So unless there's any discussion, can we get a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Mr. Fox and seconded.
Second.
We'll give it to Mr. Green for the second. Unless there's any further discussion, I think we're ready to vote on the motion for the minutes. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Bossenbrook.
Yes?
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Kenkre.
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Mr. Forster.
Yes. Minutes have been approved from June 2023. Now we'll move on to our item number 4, which is tonight's agenda. We will go ahead and approve tonight's agenda as printed unless there's any discussion from the board. Not seeing any, we'll approve the agenda for this evening, which will take us to the 5th item, which is consideration of our one application tonight, which is at 2285 Kirkton. And Mr. Evans, whenever you're ready, if you would please introduce this appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for a variance request to allow a proposed deck to be constructed 20 feet from the rear property line, where the zoning ordinance requires the deck to be no less than 25 feet from the rear property line. Now, referencing my overhead slides, the subject property is in the middle of this slide. It's surrounded in red. This is in a neighborhood south of I-75, bounded by Livernois on the west and Rochester on the east. I'll continue to zoom in. And this is at the intersection of Kirkton and Hickory, and the applicant's property is outlined in red here at the corner. I'll continue to, well, this is the zoning map. Everything in yellow is single-family residential, so as you can see, it's almost 100% single-family residential in this view. And that's an additional close-up of the property in the aerial photo. The applicant submitted a site plan, same configuration with Kirkton on the right and Hickory at the bottom. And near the left side is a depiction of the deck they want to add on. And the zoning ordinance requires the deck to be no less than 25 feet from the west property line, which is the rear property line. And the site plan shows that they're going to have it 20 feet away. And they provided some images of what the deck might look like if completed. And I believe that's a picture of the property from Hickory. So I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Mr. McCauley?
I'm looking at the application, it says 10 feet from the rear setback, and I'm looking at the dimensional drawing there. That blue line that says 20 feet, then 15 feet, is it 20 feet from the rear property line to the deck, and then 15-foot wide deck? Is that what that means, or is that whole thing 20 feet?
Excellent question. I double-checked that, and these circled numbers here are also part of the site plan that they've submitted, and they've indicated that the back of the house, without the deck, is just over 35 feet setback.
Okay.
So it looks to be the deck is 15 feet deep, resulting in a 20-foot setback.
Because we have in front of us saying that it's 10 feet from the rear property line. I believe. If I go back up. Construction 20 feet from the rear property line. I apologize. My apologies.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Green?
In the applicant's statement of practical difficulty, there's a note that this property is unusual in its 35-foot setback. Was that correct? Relative to the properties in the area. Is that accurate?
I don't know if it's accurate, because I didn't check for that. We normally wouldn't.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Green? All right, any other questions for city staff? All right. Thank you for introducing that, Mr. Evans. At this point, we would ask the applicant or his representative, if you would, sir, like to step forward to the podium and introduce yourself and speak clearly into the microphone. Tell us your relationship to the property, and we would be happy to hear whatever you'd have to add to what you've already submitted to us in your application.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the owner of that property, and originally the plot was facing towards Hickory, so it was thin and long. So the builder split it up into two pieces, and he sold it as two separate plots. So the plot became, when you look at from the front, it's wide and shorter. So when you build the house, from the end of the house to the back lot, we have 35 feet. So I'm requesting for a 5 feet of variance so that I can build a 15 feet of deck. And I would like to say that this is the smallest backyard in the whole neighborhood.
I'm sorry, you said this was the smallest?
Smallest means from the back of the house to the neighboring lot. That is the smallest available anywhere within that neighborhood. Wherever you see the house, they are all thin and long lots, so they have a large variance where they can build a 15 feet deck. So my request was 5 feet of variance. So once the deck is built, we still have 20 feet from the deck to the neighboring lot.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions from members of the board? Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes, on the table in front of us, we have no communications from your neighbors. Did you speak to that neighbor that is immediately adjacent?
Yes, I spoke to them and they told me that they are going to get a letter, but they didn't mention to me that they got a letter, but they said they are all good with that. Just the adjacent means 383.
Yeah,
I
the
spoke to
closest neighbor.
383. And the other corner, the other side of this, they called me and said, okay, they got a letter, and they asked me if they need to come over to the board and say anything. And I was not aware if I need to call them, so.
Mr. Fox?
I see from the photos you submitted that you have a fence enclosing your backyard. How tall is that fence?
That is a standard, I think it's 6 feet.
Okay.
So the deck is completely,
Thank you.
yes.
I noticed that the garage is a side entrance garage. Is there a reason why it is side entrance? Because I think all the other homes, I think their garage, I think, is in front entrance, right?
This is a corner lot, so we cannot put a front garage. Based on the plan, it's a very small lot, so from front you cannot put a garage. That's the reason they put it from the side.
Okay.
Yeah, even the opposite side house, in the corner, it has side garage. All the corner houses built are having side garages.
Because what I noticed is that with the side entrance garage, it affects where you put the house on the lot versus if you have a front entrance and if you have a deep lot, then you have space at the back of the house to build as you want. So it kind of looked a little bit odd than all the other lots in that subdivision.
Yeah, that is something that the builder designed, and that's how he sold it to me.
Any other questions? Mr. Green?
It is clear from just looking at the plotting around that this is one of 4 fairly shallow lots in the area. So that is understandable. Is there any particular reason that a 10-foot deep deck would be inadequate?
I had spoke to my neighbor, that is 2327, and he built, it's like 12 feet, little bit more. Actually, he is having a little bit bigger lot than mine because it's slant. So he's having like 3 feet more. And when I went and spoke to him, he said it's too small, and he didn't have time to come to the board because this is like a 60-day wait period. He has kids and he has a pet, and he wants dog and the kids to come out onto the same level of the house. That's the reason, even though it is small, he said once mine is approved, he'll go through the process and look at it, and if everything works out fine, then he will put for an extension of an additional 3 feet. If he thinks it is feasible, because adding on later on is a little bit tough. So that's the suggestion he was saying.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Eisenbacher?
In your letter to the, for the statement of practical difficulty E3, you mention the runoff and the water, exacerbating accumulation of water and swamping in the green space, which is already occurring. So your yard stays wet.
In the corner, left side corner, whenever it rains, I go there. It's seeping, but it's very slow. I observed that when, after raining, after a couple of days, when I went to lawn mow that, I saw it was a little bit wet there. That means it is seeping, but it's a little bit slow in that corner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Last call. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
you.
your time
Thank
and speaking to us. At this point, we will open up the public hearing. If any member of the public wishes to speak, now is your time. If you'd like to step forward to the podium, identify yourself and your relationship, perhaps where you live, your address and your relationship to this appeal, we'd be glad to hear your public comment.
I'm at 384 Hickory, so I'm directly to the south of this property. And I just came here to find out what was going on with the deck. But
Sir, can you just, what is your name?
Bill Van Horn,
Okay, thank you.
I just came to find out what was going on, but what I'm noticing is that there used to be 2 houses along Kirkton, and now there's 5, so and it sounds like the neighbor next to him to the north would also need a variance. So I'm wondering about those 3 other properties next to his neighbor. Would they also need variances?
Well, sir, so the only thing in front of the board tonight is simply this applicant's request for a variance for this deck that he's proposing to build. So we don't have any other request in front of us or any other idea of how any other owner would potentially act. So we're simply focusing on that particular variance request tonight.
Okay.
But we appreciate, yeah, Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Van Horn.
How's it going?
Okay. Do you think this would have any negative impact on you? Because it looks like your house looks at it the most.
Yeah, I look directly at the side of the house. I don't think it would really impact me that much. I mean, it's across the street.
It's behind a fence.
And there is a tall fence there, so it's not, I don't oppose it as a neighbor. I don't know what 383 would think.
Unfortunately, it didn't come, but just to give a little bit of insight to your other question, if you notice those houses further to the north, 2339 and 2351, the property line jogs, so they have a longer backyard.
Yeah,
So most likely, they'd be able to put in an even larger deck without a variance,
Right.
depending on that scale of that jog of the property line.
And 2 of them already have them.
Oh, yeah.
without variances?
It would appear so.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. We appreciate your coming out and talking to us. Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else come forward, we will close the public hearing. Appreciate the comments. And at this point, I'll ask the petitioner if the applicant, if he wants to speak to address what was just said, he can. Otherwise, we will move on to the next part of our hearing, which is to bring it back to members of the board to discuss. Based on what we have in front of us, any discussions on the variance request? Any pending motions that a member wants to bring? Did you have your hand up, Mr. Eisenbacher? Or?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
I've spoken twice, so I'm.
Okay. You're waiting, okay. Mr. Forster.
Just in a matter of comment, I think the petitioner has good arguments. It is a unique shape for the neighborhood. It sounds like none of the neighbors have any objections, at least not enough to come here. In my opinion, it looks like it fits our criteria for the most part.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kinkery.
A few years ago, we replaced our wooden deck and with a Trex deck, and our wooden deck was 12 feet wide. And what we found is that when you have a table, just a rectangle, regular table that you have on the deck, and if you have 6 chairs, and when the chairs are pulled, it did not leave enough space to go around. It was kind of really, really tight. And so we kind of added some more footage to that so that you can actually enjoy the deck, and if you have company and such, so it really worked out real well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kinkery. Any other members wish to? Mr. Green.
I think I want to hit a few of these criteria. So I'm not bringing the motion, but just in my thoughts. for our criteria, A, exceptional characteristics of property for which the variance is sought make compliance difficult for most of relative to the ones in the same area. Absolutely, there are only about 4 houses that are sort of similar with this shallow lot. I fully support that piece of it. I can get behind that. B, the characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult relate to the premises, of course. The characteristics make compliance with the dimensional requirements not of a personal nature. That is the only one at the moment where I'm having a bit of difficulty. The characteristics making compliance difficult, they weren't done by the homeowner, they were done by the builder. And the proposed variance will not be harmful. He has a fence, it's very low, his images show it. His neighbor who is here does not object. He has verbal approval from one of the other neighbors. So the only consideration is whether or not it is of a personal nature. Speaking to Mr. Cancre's past experience, I could see my way to seeing this as more of this is what standard furniture is available and this is the purpose of a deck, and his neighbors have a deck, but I do not know their depth to speak to that. So that's my only question.
Mr. Fox.
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to motion to grant the variance request based on the 5 criteria as follows. Exceptional characteristics of the property, the shallow lot size compared to the rest of the lots in the neighborhood. The characteristics are not related to another property, they're related to the property in question. The characteristics are not of a personal nature. I think anybody would want to expand the deck. I don't believe that's a personal decision. Characteristics make compliance must not have been created by a current or previous owner. It was done by the builder. Number 5, not be harmful to the essential character of the neighborhood. I think the fence completely hides the deck, and I think it would fit into the neighborhood just fine. So I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Motion from Mr. Fox, seconded by Mr. Forster. Is there further discussion from any member of the board? Seeing or hearing nothing, I think we're ready for a vote. Mr. Evans, the motion is to grant the variance, and a yes would grant.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. Kencrey,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Motion is granted.
Motion's granted. Congratulations, sir. Thank you for coming out tonight and bringing your application. We will move on now to item number 6. Are there any communications from the city or any members of the board? Mr. Fox?
Planning Commission is working with city staff on, Planning Commission a couple meetings ago motioned and requested city staff look at neighboring communities to see what kind of ordinances and zoning changes they've implemented to encourage green, environmentally friendly building. So city staff is currently in the process of researching that. They're going to give a presentation to the Planning Commission in August, and then who knows? We'll see what potential solutions work for Troy from there. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Please feel free to check out the past meetings.
All right, thank you. Thank you for our Planning Commission liaison for those updates. We appreciate it. Anything else from communications? I think we're set. Item number 7, I don't believe we have any miscellaneous business tonight. Mr. Evans, do we?
No, I guess one thing I can mention is that I should know tomorrow if we're going to have any items to consider in August. So we'll let everybody know as soon as possible.
All right, thank you. And that takes us to item 8. Are there any items of public comment? I don't think so. So we will move on to item number 9, when we will adjourn, maybe for August, maybe September.